This episode is brought to you by Mortgage Workflow Partners and the Mastering Encompass series, both for users as well as administrators. You can find out all the information about it over at masterengencompass.com. Also, if you'd like to check out what we're doing on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel using the @MasteringEncompass handle. And make sure you stay up to date on all the information, not just with podcasts, but also video content that we bring to you as often as possible. Now let's get on to the episode. Hey, welcome everyone. My name is Larry Bailey. Thanks for coming today. I'm the CEO of Mortgage Workflow Partners. And today is Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern. We have today, and then we have one more in 2 weeks. It's going to round out our 12-part series for 2025. Today's meeting is all about wrapping up the file and shipping. We're going to talk about post-closing and trailing docs. My imaginary make-believe mortgage company, and what I would always advise people to do in terms of best practice workflows, things like that, as we're letting people roll in because it's just getting 4 o'clock. And if their day is like mine, if your day is like mine, it's like never ending. And so a couple of things before we get jumping too far in into the subject matter. Number one, if you're going to or thinking about going to the ICE Mortgage Experience, make sure you use our Mortgage Workflow Partners discount. If you're not quite sure where to find that, good news. You can just go ahead and head over into the community. I'll show you that on screen here in a second. And you can type in discount, and that'll come up on screen. So feel free to go ahead and do that. So if we come up here, type in search, and we just type in discount, enter, and you'll come up. I think it's like the first one. I want to use my ICEX26 discount code. There it is. Use that sucker. It takes $250 off each ticket. So there's that. Also, open events. If you go to open events in the community, you'll see the 4th annual ICEX26 wrap-up event. It's $250. So if you are going to it, stay one more day. I promise it'll be worth it. The entire outline is right here on screen. I've had a bunch more people in here. Entire outline is here on the screen. We've got 5 people. There's 50 slots, so 45 people left, and it's November, so I'm sure this will fill up to the brink. But 50 is the max for the room. We found out that last year. So there's that. And again, today's event, for those that are just joining, thanks very much for coming. Today's event is all about wrap and ship, post-closing and trailing docs. So we're going to talk about, I want to talk about a lot of things in terms of the workflow and what I would do and what I'd recommend that you do for your best practice workflow. Today's all about this one right here, post-closing trailing docs. So a couple of things, and as people are still rolling in here, a couple of things. Obviously, we've got the 25.4 dropping this weekend, unless you've opted out. Some folks are opting out because they either are nervous about their own technology not working with a new DLL structure, or they've got third parties that have requested them to opt out because of DLL structure changes. Whatever it is, if you're not part of those, make sure that you come down and check out the 25.4 release notes. If you haven't already done that, what are you waiting for? If you have done it, let me know if you have any questions on those. Love to hear back from you. The big thing that I want to reiterate with this web update, if you are like me and you want to get into using workflow tasks across your organization, which we're going to talk about today with post-closing. One of the things that is coming in 25.4, but not to everyone on release, is the ability to view all tasks in the task pipeline. So if you've been listening to me all year, really since last year, I've been talking about task pipeline using workflow tasks. One of the things that's going to be right here, hopefully in the next 6 weeks for everyone, but certainly over this next weekend for some, is the all tasks task view. And this is really important because if you don't have the ability to see all of your tasks across your entire pipeline, kind of what good is it, right? And so that's due to come. just not for everyone on this weekend. The word is from the Ice Mortgage Technology product team is that will be in sometime for everyone, sometime in beginning to middle of December. And they just want to make sure everything's working properly before they roll it out. Cool. So let's talk about a couple of things here. What does it mean? Again, this topic for today is all about. Let me get back to open events. It is all about post-closing and trailing docs. Right? We closed the file. So remember, we closed the file last week. I talked about getting that file to closing. We talked about you might be sending out packages via eClose or hybrid eClose or PDFs through Loan Connect, or maybe you're printing at your local branch and your borrower's coming in and signing in ink, all the above. What happens when those come back? Right? And so everybody's got a different workflow at some level. Some people are still receiving overnight packages back. Some people are supposed to, but they're not. And you got to chase those. And then some, of course, are doing a whole full e-close, and those files are purchased much, much quicker than paper. So what I want to walk you through today is what's possible, right? And how to deal with it. Part of what is important to really understand in terms of post-closing is understanding what your workflow is in that event. And when we get into Encompass, everybody's a little bit different on this, but what I found is important is when you come into post-closing, one of the things that is critically important is how do we figure out if we got those conditions that we needed cleared from those post-closing. So if we go over, again, I'm going to show you Encompass Web, naturally. But when we come in here, if we've got either prior to purchase conditions or prior to funding conditions, we need to make sure that we're actually looking at those. And so from my perspective, when I go through, if I had any PTFs, these should all be cleared. I can't tell you how often I see workflow reviews and post-closing conditions unmanaged in files. And so part of this also has to do with as we're bringing stuff back. Now, if you're using a piece of technology that ingests PDF blobs and automatically assigns them into your file, that's great. Not everybody has that functionality. And so when you go through, I want to make sure that, first of all, again, everybody hopefully is using New Doc Viewer. Show of hands, there's about 29 other people here besides me. Is anybody not using New Doc Viewer yet? And how do you know if you're using New Doc Viewer? Well, you'll go into your desktop settings. So you're still using old Doc Viewer. And for those that have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, if you go into your desktop loan file, you go into your E folder, and you go and you add a file. I'll just go add something here real quick. We'll add a I'll add this. Maybe, hopefully it works for me. So it'll have a mountain and a sun, right? And so when this converts, we want to, you want to check this out. Here's the reason why this is important. Because if you're using, so you see that's like a page with a green world, that's New Doc Viewer. In English, what that means is that you're using the Encompass server to do document conversion, and it's appearing here. Naturally, now I've gone over a whole bunch of stuff with New Doc Viewer. If you haven't seen this free course on New Doc Viewer Introduction, please take advantage of it. Sorry, let me be a little bit better for you. This right here. And if you're not using New Doc Viewer, honestly, it's one of the easier things for you to do. And if you haven't done it yet, it's long overdue. If you've got issues that you haven't worked out yet because you've got custom print forms that you haven't been able to clear up. Remember, that's the one. There's two problems with New Doc Viewer. Number one, because it's server-side doc conversion, sometimes fonts get a little bit crazy on the conversion. And then the second part is user interface, right? And so if I'm in this file, I'll show you again. I'm going to show you the E folder. Actually, let me show you desktop because this is what everybody's using right now, right? So in desktop, if I come in here, the user interface for editing this file is a little bit different. And so what I try to remind folks, because this happens a lot, is if you select one file, you can do editing here. You can do all these things. If you select more than one file, these editing rights are not present, right? And so just make sure you know how to use this. Use the free course that's in the community. The reason why this is important for new doc viewer is because I need to make sure that the conversion happens as soon as possible and is quick and snappy. And when it comes to closing packages, there's nothing that you cannot create more time. And so I need to have things that happen rapidly. First thing that I'm doing is I am doing the new doc viewer so I can make sure packages come in and I can immediately split them. The other reason why it's important for new doc viewer is because if I came into this file, sorry, excuse me, if I came into this file and I wanted to make sure that I was editing this if I can bring this up, thanks. If I wanted to break this down across the different pieces, I need to be able to come in and edit this file. And I need to be able to either extract them to where I need them to go by dragging and dropping, right? And so I can retype this in whatever it is, and I can make sure it gets there. Or I can come over here and thank you, and edit this file, and I can select which ones I want to extract by either moving it, or I can move and save, right? So I can either move it and delete, or I can move and save. When it comes to post-closing and delivery, especially if I want to retain copies or if I want to put things into a stack to ship, but I want to have duplicate copies of this part of the file or these number of pages of the file, new doc viewer is critically important for that document splitting. That's why it's a big deal. And so in my organization, that's what I do. The second thing that happens is as I'm going through this, again, if I'm using desktop or web, it doesn't matter. But if I find deficiencies, I want to make sure that I'm leveraging workflow tasks as I go. So in this particular case, if I'm using web, I'm going to pop it out and I'm going to be doing the doc management on a different screen. And while I have this open on a different screen, I'll just throw it over here for the moment. So it's off screen. I'm leveraging workflow tasks for things that are deficient. This is something that you can decide on whether or not it's a condition of a file or if it's a workflow task. And so what we've been talking about really for the last 5 months is leveraging parts of Encompass. And again, I'm going to throw back up desktop because there's a lot of folks on this call that are still using desktop. So if I've got eFolder running, right, that's here, right? Pretend that's open in the back on a different form, on a different screen rather, and I'm using my workflow tasks here. Remember that workflow tasks are not UI specific. They are file focused. It's just when I go into this task, I'm not going to have the fancy UI that I have for my sorry for the distraction, for the UI on the web interface. But as you just saw, when I have subtasks running, and these subtasks are here because of workflow rules. So guys, I don't know what your feedback is, but if you just take a look at the screen for a second, you can appreciate, sorry, Carrie, I'm letting you in now. Hopefully you can appreciate the fact that if you wanted to have specific subtasks for the review, the closing package review, you can do that. And you can make sure based upon the data in the file that certain subtasks are achieved based upon what needs to be done. Now, part of how I got here was talking about the distinction between a workflow task and a condition. So if there's something that's missing, I want to come in to create this workflow task, I can do that by adding a task, and I can look up something that I need to. So if I had a note, right, or if I had something like that, I can create those workflow tasks as I need to, and then most importantly, set a due date, right? So if this new task came up, and I need to set a due date for where are we now? November 4th. So I'm going to give this 7 days out and I want to remember to follow up on this at 1 p.m. Okay. And it's a number one priority because it's a something that's really needed. And I want to assign it to me. And then I want to apply this. Done. Now, when I want to come in and look at my day as far as a post closure is concerned, I can go into my task pipeline for that day, and I roll in and I see everything that's got to be done for my day on my desk. And if I want to sort by priority, click that twice, so the number one's at top, and now I'm going through my day. So, sorry, I'm just noticing that there's a chat. So Lynn asks, are there data fields available to track the status of tasks or subtasks, the due date, etc.? Well, you're not tracking your data fields, right? You're, Lynn, let me know if I'm hitting your question for you. But if we want to know what's available, I'm doing it right here. And if I want to customize the columns on here for what I'm looking for, it's not a thing, right? There's no customization. I can either apply a filter by, that was done, by looking at description, right? I can come in here and sort by description or sort by task name. I can search by a task name that's in my list if I'm looking for that. But more importantly, I can come over here and make sure I sort by priority and or due date. I can also check my comments here. So I don't want you to think in terms of looking at a pipeline, trying to sort things like that. And my post-closing team, or if you've got your closers doing this, I'm leveraging workflow tasks inside the file on desktop, in case that's where you're working for now, and making sure that they know they have the ability to document if something's missing. Now, if I have conditions running, again, I got the E folder popped out. Remember a moment ago when I popped out the E folder, right? And so I had this over to the side. In desktop, I've got to flip back and forth between documents and conditions to manage that. In web, which is an interesting situation, in web, I don't have to do that. I can actually go into the file and I can have this this E folder popped out. And so that I can have this on the side and I can come over, and while I'm looking at the documents, I can actually manage the conditions here. So I can see documents and conditions at the same time. Quite the situation. So, so the idea is if I go through and I wanted to look at the prior to funding or any other condition prior to, if I needed to add a condition on there, I could, right? I can come in here and add something for whatever I need to based upon searching for it. So I don't know if I have anything for title, but perfect. I need to add this one because I noticed that the title came back goofy. Well, why isn't that a workflow task? And the reality is the reason why it's not a workflow task is because I need to make sure that this is a quality of loan file. So if I know that, if I can type, I know that if I've got this closing title vesting, title must be vested. If that's outstanding, I might have a workflow task. Hey, sweetie, I might have a workflow task trailing, or excuse me, following up with my closing party, whether it's an attorney who did this or a title agency who did this. But whoever I have to go chase, this condition is outstanding, but the workflow task is really where I'm focusing in on what has to be done. Right. So if I go to workflow tasks, I need that title and I've requested it from the agent and it's due in 2 days with a number one priority. So hopefully this is making sense. And if anybody has any questions, let me know. But in post-closing, it's all about making sure that I'm tracking what I'm receiving, that I give my team the ability to document what's been requested and what's outstanding. Very different from the open conditions on a file. And so what I've hopefully helped really paint here is, as we're getting ready for closing and we're running fast, we need to make sure that we've got the ability to split that PDF blob into the documents they belong. If I need to create copies of those pages because I want to put the same file in 2 different locations, you can do that with New Doc Viewer. You can do it when you split up that PDF blob. And then ultimately, if you're the kind of company that goes into documents And actually, I'll bring back Open Desktop. If you're the kind of company that likes to use document status of ready to ship, does anybody, by the way, show of hands, does anybody use ready to ship right here? Cool. So quite a few, right? So about six-ish people out of the group. So it's a good number. If you're using ready to ship, when you go into your actual delivery, which I'm gonna get into now, but when you go into your delivery, one of the things that you can go through in your deliver loans up here, but you can go through and decide how do you want to make those documents eligible for shipping, right? And so when we get into sorry, not there. When we get into here, you have two choices. Ready, you have a stacking template, which is what we're all used to, right? We've been building stacking templates for God knows how long, right? Stacking templates here, and then it goes into export templates, and then you figure out what you want, and then you're using maybe third-party tech to figure out what's current version, and you don't want duplicates and whatever. You can set that all right here. So if you develop a workflow to where you're using in your e-folder, right? If you go into the e-folder and I went into single view, sorry guys. If we go into this document, right? We'll go into here. And I'm reviewing this, and I want to set the status of this document into ready to ship, right? So I want to go into the details that'll come up over here. Its current version, which is great, and I want to mark this file as document status ready to ship. If I perform that, when I go into close this, when I go into deliver that loan through Investor Connect, this is the power of that choice. And so this is the reason why I bring this up is because we're so used to working off stacking templates. In the past, I was always an advocate for just making sure your stacking templates were updated. But as an admin, it's really super simple to come over and say, okay, guys, thank you, instead of worrying about that, if the underwriter's like, yeah, you know what, I've reviewed this guy, I want to mark it ready for ship and be done with it. Whether or not you use protected doc workflow or not, that can be an asset when it comes to deliver. It's a show of hands day. Is there anyone not using Investor Connect for at least some of your loans? I know it's not available for all investors, right? It's probably never going to be available for all investors, but is there anyone who's not using Investor Connect for any? Just two, maybe three. Looks like two or three. Four. Okay. Small number. So just as a reminder, when you go over and you're setting that up, you're still going to find in services password management, you might have it set up for your investors here. Right? So investors here. And so, these are the folks that are, open for business with Investor Connect. What's going to be super powerful as soon as we have more people on the investor side and more people on the seller side, meaning you, if you're a seller and they're the investor, you use enhanced conditions, they use enhanced conditions. That's when this is really, really powerful. Because when we come over into delivering loans, what I'm doing with my company is I'm working with investors who are on enhanced conditions using Encompass. And I'm on enhanced conditions because I want the ability to make sure I've got these conditions going back and forth. I went over this in admin training today. And so what ends up happening in the e-folder, this is on, and your investor also has it on. When you're over in enhanced conditions, I'll tell you 1 second, Maggie. And Sean, I see your question. Hang on with me 1 second. So when we go over into conditions, if I add in conditions, I can come over investor delivery conditions and I can import all, or I can review and import. And so And so when I do this, it'll launch a import conditions. It's going to fail, obviously. But if you're hooked into an investor that has this, you can review these conditions and then import. And then what's super cool is if I were to go over and add conditions, let me just add some real quick. If I have these conditions received from the investor and I go over and I add in supporting documents, and this is what I'm ready to send, I can use these status updates. Let's pretend I'm doing correspondence. So I clear that condition that came in. I can use these status updates to drive back, come on, drive back condition delivery. And so that if I mark it as cleared, I can map that status to my partners. So here's who I'm dealing with. So I think the answer is Chase, Maggie, Fifth Third, and Village right now, because they're available for mapping. So if I click add, I can say cleared. I want that to go to cleared. If I save that, this means that I can deliver those conditions. So if I save that, I can deliver these conditions out to my investor. So if I go here and I go, I go, oh, I'm in documents. Man, am I blind? So this one's ready to go. I want to deliver. That's just the button I was looking for. I can deliver condition responses because that's mapped in. I can go ahead and select that. Again, this is not going to work, right? But I can select that condition in from that UI and then hit deliver, and it's out. Guys, this is the big deal. This is why I've been saying since the beginning of 24, technically the end of 23. Thanks, Beth Bastion, for letting me force you onto onto enhanced conditions at the beginning of 24. This was always the vision of why enhanced conditions are so powerful for workflows. And this is why it's one of our, top 5 of 25. It's not just for web UI, which of course it is, but it's also about delivering these loans so we can get these things purchased quicker. So we can get these loans sold quicker. Most importantly, so I don't have to go to some stupid website and download, upload, screenshot, grab. All this other stuff is unnecessary if we can just get to enhanced, which is right here at our fingertips. So let me go back and answer some questions. Sean says, is there a way to lock out users from editing docs marked ready to ship without using a plugin? Not that I'm aware of yet, Sean. I don't know of any way to install an artificial persona access to documents rule, because that's just the rule. I see things on the game plan, but for now, you're still using a plugin for that. Maggie, I answered your question. And Craig, you say only 3 investors use this feature. It looks like that for now. Yeah. Yeah. And so how did we see that, just for anybody who blinked? We went over into settings and we went over into deliver loans. And we went over to condition delivery, and we wanted to do, this is for Chase, right? So add partner and select partner. So you have these others that are here. Let's see who's in. So you got due diligence, you got Opus, servicing, you got Nada, warehouse lender, you got Nada, and investor, you got these guys. So Fifth Third and Village, and then Chase. Candace asks, what does the investor see as far as the description for that enhanced condition? Internal, I thought investors outside parties couldn't see internal descriptions. So it's not. So first of all, I don't know what Chase or those other companies actually see. They're not one of my clients, so I can't tell you personally. But Chris is in the community. He works at Chase. Maybe he can answer that question better. But the idea would be you're not sending the condition name, you're sending the condition that maps over in. So your condition is not yours, it's theirs, right? If you're importing, right? Weird, super weird. But imagine that you've got technology that adds in like AUS conditions. Oh yeah, you do, right? Same thing, right? It's not about, you're not creating a construct, you're just importing the data in that field. that's mapped. And so I'm going to take you back 7 years-ish with Flagstar. You can remember that company. So Flagstar was one of the leaders in this space where they actually built the translation table to go from Encompass Desktop right into Flagstar's proprietary system, whoever owns that today. And it was a great translation table technology, but it's just like, who else can do that? Nobody. It's just too much money. It's too complex. And so by standardizing the interface with Encompass, that's why it's so powerful. And so when it comes to, for us, I closed the loan, I got the loan, right? And so now I'm dealing with, get out of here. I'm dealing with my post closer who now has to ship the loan. I'm shipping through Investor Connect because those are the only investors I want to work with. But let's use present day. Let's not use future. Present day. I've worked out my conditions that I still have open that I need to clear. Those might be from my operations team, or it might be from a post-closing condition from my closing package reviewer. As I've said, as I've said all along here, it's not the conditions that we're watching, it's also the tasks. So do not confuse the two. A condition is about loan quality. A task is about something that has to be done that's not yet done or was done wrong. So recently, recently it was a big deal. We successfully, as of next week, we will have successfully rolled out Encompass Web to sales teams for a top 50 IMB, and they have 128 different branches of 3 different kinds of retail production. And we got there because we chose a very specific path that was valuable to everyone involved. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because we are moving now into LOAs and LPs, and although the loan officers aren't necessarily a workflow task outfit, loan officer assistants and loan processors absolutely are all about workflow tasks. And it was about, well, what kind of workflow tasks do we want to have? I'm bringing this up for post-closing because it's relative, just bear with me. But the idea is we want you to track what is actually outstanding or what is wrong to be fixed, as opposed to this is how you do your job. Like this guy right here with this, pretend this is title review. These are things that are here because there's data in the file that causes something to be reviewed. So if we had, now again, this is all appraisal stuff, right? But imagine we had after 26/1 next year, where the XML is coming in on the appraisal and it automatically reads what the condition rating is. Do we need this workflow task to be in somebody's face? No, we don't. But if for some reason in that appraisal, the condition rating was missing or was illegible or was just outside of the range of one of these choices, then it would be something to actually be looked at and reviewed, and then a status. So the idea is with post-closing, I'm going through and making sure that the team is aware of what's needed or what's missing or what's broken. Those are workflow tasks. Condition of the loan file, something, the note came back, it wasn't signed. That's a condition. Now it's also a task that I'm chasing with the company. When it comes to post-closing conditions that I'm managing to my investors that I've sent, if I'm chasing something that's needed, obviously we're going to have the condition in post-closing from the investor. It's going to be right here. But if I need that VA child care letter that I've requested from the borrower, I sent that request to the borrower and I need a 2-day follow-up or a 1-day follow-up to go get it. That's a workflow task. Hopefully everybody's got it. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here, but that's that, to use that phrase. But that's the thing. So we got the loan. We're about ready to purchase the loan. Remember, we need to make sure, please, 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 that you actually go through and reconcile that purchase advice that you receive. There are a lot of things that are going on here. So if we look at the purchase advice form tool, this original loan amount, this side should be what you got from your secondary registration tool, all this stuff. Especially down here, if you've collected any let's say the first payment was due to you, because of the timing of when you sold that loan. So you want to make sure that you're updating balances. You want to make sure this expected column is what you're expecting to get paid. And please make sure that you're not leaving this empty for your team to put $100 there and $100 there. And oh my God, it matches. Go figure. That's not the way this is used. If this is empty and someone put -100, oh, that's a bad idea. But let's just say we filled in a template, right? We want to make sure we come over here and select the template for the investor. We select this and we're expecting 250, but the lender took off 350 because they were feeling a particular way that day. And this was only -25 and this was -200, right? We have a variance here of 500 of reconciliation of $100 that's due to us. But you can see all these values just don't add up. So we want to make sure we address these things. Sean says, with the template set up correctly, it takes about 15 seconds to reconcile a PA, assuming there's no discrepancies. And assuming there's no discrepancies is the catch. So Sean, thanks for making that point. Anytime that there's a discrepancy, there's two ways to do this. You can take this, or this, or this. Sorry, this is what I meant to do. This one here and say there's a reconciliation issue. But what happens if it ends up working out to where there's no reconciliation, but there's a difference in this column right here between one of these fields? Just be mindful of this. Sometimes you can actually get no reconciliation, but there's things that are off. Yeah, and to Sean's point, if it's like a penny or 10 cents off, yeah, maybe it's a write-off, maybe it's a write-in. You have to set a level of it. So you're going to choose, what I found is if there is a reconciliation difference, that's a requirement for a workflow task to have somebody come in and make sure that there's a comment for what it is if it exceeds a certain dollar limit. And then making sure, what I always say is if there's a reconciliation comment in here, I use a field trigger rule to basically add in a confirmed by and a confirmed date. So that way there's accuracy in there. Pardon me. So purchase advice forms done, it's reconciled. There's some investors that round their interest to do decimals. There's always some kind of stuff. Some people will actually lock this in because they'll make changes. Please don't do that. Just live with reconciliation. Your accounting team will appreciate it if you just do that. Same thing goes with buy side. The sell amount here is dollars, right, in pennies, because that's how you get paid. You don't get paid in basis points. So just be mindful of how your team is leveraging this. If they do need to do, basis points, just click that box. Okay. So we got the package in, we delivered it, we cleared conditions, we sold it, we got paid, we reconciled. These are all real things that you need to do on every file. If you're not reconciling, I guarantee you're not making as much money as you think you're making, or you're not keeping as much money as you should. Yes, that is how you get office space. So that's number one. Number two, when you come in here, please make sure that you have a great workflow of following up on these workflow tasks. So when you are coming in, that file gets purchased. That's not the end of the day, gang. For those that are in mortgage banking, you now have to make sure that you deliver those final docs to your investor. Otherwise, you could get hit with fees. We've got a client right now where the seller is, who is our client, they're constantly charging back their TPO clients for late. I'm sorry, I'm laughing at Sean's comment. Can I buy a starter set of workflow tasks? Sure, Sean. $100 a task. How's that? They're constantly pushing back charges to their TPO sellers for late final docs, obviously EPOs, early payoffs, or EPDs, early payment defaults. It's a whole nother story. But when it comes to late charges for final docs, guys, there's no excuse. There really is no excuse. Please automatically create any files that you got to follow up on trailing docs for final title, final recorded title. Final title policy and final recorded mortgage. Or not final recorded mortgage, but your recorded mortgage. Easy stuff to chase. If your process is to just send automatic emails to your title providers, they're getting, if they even get there, they're getting ignored. I'm always going to suggest that you come in and create your workflow tasks. Not for nothing. Where'd it go? It disappeared on me? Oh, I probably got logged out. Yes, I know. I know. So the other thing that I'm going to throw out here is there are some companies that do automatic outbound calling. And I know this is like edge use case, but the idea is if you're going through and you've got these workflow tasks that are outstanding, obviously that are coming up or overdue, this is where you can have a call list for the day, and you can set up your workflow rules for repetitive schedulers like every 2 weeks or every 30 days, whatever it is for you. What I found that works pretty well is 30-day automatic emails are fine, but I would stagger with in the middle of those 30 days. So in other words, on 30th day I email, 45th day I call, 60th day I email, 75th day I call. Depending on your level of urgency, you might want to ramp up the phone calls. Phone calls will always land more solidly on following up on trailing docs than email. So leverage workflow tasks to distinguish, and obviously leverage automated emails that go out to your third parties. Now, this is where one of those things is like, wait, can Encompass support automatic emails to third parties outbound? And the answer is no. The answer is when you get into workflow management, you get into workflow rules. You can fire notification template, no problem, but your notification templates are only going to go out to your TPO external users or internal users. That's it. That's all you can do. And so this is where, again, you need to leverage your best practice workflow, whether that's leveraging a third-party piece of tech or not. That's going to be up to you on how you leverage it. But I just want to remind everybody that currently under today's native Encompass, that external email is not something you can choose. And I'm here to say it's certainly, even if you're only sending out emails, your teams, or maybe you outsource this, but the teams are calling are more effective. All right. So we're in our last 10 minutes here, 12 minutes, and we've gone over our post-closing tracking. We've gone over how to manage this. Let's get into some ideas of managing QC and review. So there's traditionally, if you're a lender, you typically have to take a sample and you have to post-close quality control, right? Especially if you're a government lender, you've got to always go through this. So there's definitely something, you want to check with your own policies on how you handle quality control reviews post-closing. Some companies require the findings to be outside of their system of their loan origination system because they want to make sure that there's specific processes. ACES is a system that's been around forever, that's been used by some, but more and more companies are finding that you're actually able to leverage a segregated place to do post-closing quality control and come up with a findings mechanism to do this. So check this out. This is kind of neat. Something to consider. Go into your E folder, go into enhanced conditions. Go into your condition type. And I want you to create post-closing QC. Okay. Remember, your tracking options are there as results. So I know we're kind of used to seeing these. One of the things that ACES does, and I'm going to use ACES because I'm personally familiar with it, but one of the things that you can do, of course, is you can get rid of all these options, but I'm not going to waste your time. You can get rid of all these. But what if you had a tracking status where it said risk level 1, okay, or risk level 2, or risk level 3? You guys get me, right? This is like you're finding, I'm probably using the wrong word, so if somebody's like an ACES person, like please correct me, but your level of finding is a range, and you got more serious to less serious. But if we go through and you have that QC, that quality, that post-closing QC condition type, you can go through and establish specific post-closing conditions that only the post-closing condition role can manage. So let's pretend it's this, right? So they can go through and you can create this condition type, and then you can go through and you can create any condition you want to assign to that particular condition type. And you can make sure that obviously you set the owner and that kind of stuff. But my point is that when you go through, you can have a whole set of post-closing condition types that are findings that are, again, if you're allowed to do it within your system of record, unique conditions with unique statuses. So that when we go and look at the cancel, yes. So when we go look at the E folder of conditions with enhanced, you can come over and you can look at the type of condition. So if we come over here, I don't want that. I want the, not the condition type. I just lost my train of thought. I want the status. Where's my status? Oh, right here. Duh. So in the status, I can pick my status and my finding. So in other words, if it was 1, 2, or 3, the status would show up there. And obviously it would show prior to, you can make up something that makes sense for that outline. So it's again, it's a little bit edge case use, but one of the things that the reason why I want to bring this up for this group was because I want you to always remember that with enhanced conditions, it's not just about pre and post closing. It's also about ways to create condition types that you could never create before for resources that you have. We're using this for consumer loans. We're using this for commercial loans. We're using this for quality control purposes. Not something you would normally think about, but it's one of the ways that I've been leveraging enhanced conditions for unique workflows that are traditionally not housed inside of Encompass. And so when you do this, one of the things that you're now allowed to do and are able to do now in Encompass is pull the reporting, right? So if I wanted to see how many loans in my pipeline had a level 3 finding, I guess they're called findings, a level 3 finding as a quality control. I can see it in my system, and now I can see everything in one place, which again is really nice when you have a single source of truth, if you're allowed to. So one of the things that we're going to talk about in 2 weeks, which will be our part 12, is really understanding how all this ties together, how it ties together with loan level accounting, because as we've been going through this again since June, so it's been a little bit, we've been really walking you through this, all of these, effectively all these milestones now, and we've got the loan purchased. We're trying to get the loan completed. This is where you actually tell how you did as a company. And every time that I go do workflow reviews or workflow reimaginations, or we're helping a company kind of put things together into a better place, I start in 2 places at the same time. I start at the very beginning and the very end, and I squeeze to the middle. And the reason why I do that is because I can control the beginning 100% because there's nothing before I start. So I can control that entire universe. At the end, I can see what reality is. I can see what's in the E folder. I can see how the files are being used. I can see how many conditions are open or how many alerts are there, or how many files are sitting in unassigned or the junk E folder or whatever. I can see if the reconciliation happened. I can see if the interim servicing is even being used. I can see it all. So what I can also see is when I go to looking at the reconciliation part, I can see how many times services were ordered. I can see all of these things together and ultimately how much time and how many people were involved in that file. And we can start to develop a true cost of that loan. Not only from your people and your time, but also the services that you ordered and didn't get paid back for. This is how mortgage companies die. This is how they run themselves out of business, because they can't actually see the details of loan operations at the micro level because they're not tracking it all along. It's totally understandable. I've watched it happen for 35 years. Well, I'm exaggerating, 33 years, excuse me. And the companies that are able to capture this concept and put it into practice, you can't do everything all at once, but you can start at the beginning, you can start at the end. And so that's why I found that to be the most important way to constantly bring in this feedback loop of what are we doing? What should we be doing? How do we get there? Let's try it again tomorrow, and the day after that, and the week and month and year after that. So whole point of this 12-part series was to take you from the beginning to the end and have you strategically stop at each part of that workflow to get concepts of what you can take back with you. And so Sean asks, Sean, thanks for being so active today. Sean asks, with enhanced conditions, can my processor now clear our investor mirrored conditions for only non-delegated loans? I'm thinking this requires an entirely separate set of conditions and a different condition type. So you'll have to explain to me what your investor mirrored conditions for non-delegated loans. Do you mean the conditions you're pulling off the investor website to put into your e-folder so you can track them? Okay, cool. So you would need to make sure you have an enhanced condition type that if it were me, I would set up a non-delegated condition type, because you want to be able to have them create those blank conditions and then copy and paste, right? And so the name is whatever the name is, and the description is whatever the description is. And I would set that up with like this, like, non-del, yeah, whatever, NDC conditions. I don't know if I'd have any of this, maybe prior to purchase, sources, maybe the investor or something like that, or I don't know, recipiency investor. But down here, I'd probably have just a status of these plus cleared, or maybe you do, yeah, I'd probably just do cleared, right? Because that's all I care about. And I would give my processor the ability to clear. And anybody else, by the way, doesn't have to be that. But in your case, yeah, Sean, I would do that. And then I would come over and make that active. And then I'd come over and create a blank condition. I'd say type is NDC condition, and I would do blank NDC. I'd probably put an asterisk at the beginning just so it's at the top. Sorry for the dog in the background. And then I'd category, I'd leave all this blank. I'd save. And I'd do that. What do you think, Sean? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Maybe? Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with what you're thinking, because I want to be able to come into the file, right? I want to be able to no. I want to have them to be able to come into this loan file and go over into, I don't know if that's going to work. Hang on, let me go back here. That one I want. I want to be able to have them come into a file, and if the investor's not on EPC on Investor Connect yet, come to the conditions, click plus, and then do blank condition. Come over condition type, and then they'll select what they can, and then the name will say blank. They'll click blank. Again, I don't have it in here, but let's just pretend this was the one I just did. They'll add that. This will come up, and this will say blank, right? This is the little bit of a sticky point. They can't change the name, so the condition name will say blank. Maybe that's not descriptive enough for you, but this is the description that I would put. And so when I had this, when I have this in the file, it's going to say, whatever I just added on here, this guy, it'll say blank there. And you would just create more of them, right? So this is why this kind of workflow sucks, because how many times are you going to see blank there? For them, maybe that's really not a good answer. But until you get on, until everybody's on enhanced conditions, I don't have a way for them to free type a name. So that's the one thing you're going to have to kind of deal with. To do this, maybe you customize columns, maybe you get rid of name, and you move external description up to the top, and then have them save this view as non DC, non-delegated correspondent or whatever. And then that way, when they come in here, they don't get confused with the name. They just see the description. Maybe do that. Just spitball. But let us know how you make out. Gang, that's all I got for today. Any questions? Anybody want me to run back through anything? Sorry, I ran a little bit long, but hopefully that was helpful for you. Next week, we're going to go over loan level accounting, profitability, and analytics. I'm going to tie all this together and hopefully fill in some gaps. But thanks for coming today. Any questions? Anybody watching the replay, go ahead and ask questions in the replay. Let me know how you make out. Guys, have a great rest of your day. That's all I got for now. Feel free to pop out if you need to, or if you have any questions, hang back. I'll give it a 5. Everybody's leaving. All right, get out of here. Good night. Be well. See you now.